Jacob's Well, a popular swimming hole near Wimberley, will remain closed to swimmers for the foreseeable future.
There is a hole in the earth in central Texas that has been swallowing people for decades. Not dramatically, not loudly, quietly, patiently, the way a trap waits. It sits in the bed of Cypress Creek, just outside the small town of Wimberley, a perfectly circular opening roughly 12 feet across, framed by sun-bleached limestone and lapped by cool, shallow water. On a summer afternoon, you would never guess it was dangerous. You would see children laughing. You would see families floating in the shade of bald cypress trees. You would see a line of people stretching along the bank, waiting their turn to leap from a ledge into one of the most strikingly beautiful natural swimming holes in the entire state of Texas. What you would not see, because it is invisible from the surface, is the cave system spiraling downward beneath your feet, into passages so dark, so narrow, and so deadly that more than a dozen people who entered them never came back. This is Jacob's Well, and for the first time in modern history, a machine has gone deep enough inside it to show us what those passages actually look like. What the cameras recorded was not what anyone expected. To understand Jacob's Well, you first have to understand the ground beneath the Texas Hill Country. This entire region sits atop one of the most extraordinary geological formations in North America, a vast slab of ancient limestone called the Edwards Plateau, laid down during the Cretaceous period when a shallow inland sea covered the heart of the continent. Over millions of years, as that sea retreated and the land shifted, slightly acidic groundwater began filtering through the limestone, dissolving it grain by grain, carving chambers and corridors through solid rock, the way rust works through iron. The result is a hidden world beneath the surface of Texas, a labyrinth of interconnected caves, tunnels, and underwater passages that nobody has ever fully mapped. Jacob's Well is a window into that world. It is technically classified as an artesian spring, a point where pressurized underground water forces its way upward through a vertical shaft and discharges at the surface. The spring is fed by the Trinity Aquifer, a vast underground reservoir that stretches beneath a significant portion of central Texas and supplies drinking water to hundreds of thousands of people. The well has been flowing for thousands of years. Its water holds at 68 degrees Fahrenheit in every season, and its clarity is almost unreal. A quality of visibility that makes the first 30 feet of the cave look less like a body of water and more like a glass-enclosed exhibit. That clarity is part of why people keep underestimating it. Beautiful water does not look lethal, but the depth beneath that beautiful water tells a different story entirely. Below the sunlit entry chamber, Jacob's Well drops into a series of stacked rooms connected by constrictions that narrow in ways a human body can just barely navigate. Divers who have gone deep enough to map portions of the system describe at least 4 known chambers, each one pressing deeper into the earth, each one more difficult to exit than the previous. The passages connecting them have earned names that function less as geography and more as warnings. One is called the birth canal, a constriction so tight that divers must remove their oxygen tanks and push them ahead before squeezing themselves through. Another section is known as the coffin. These are not colorful exaggerations invented to make the place sound dramatic. They are functional descriptions given by people who have been inside and survived. The floors of the deeper chambers compound the danger in a way that is not immediately obvious. Rather than solid rock, they are layered with a fine, powdery silt accumulated over centuries of slow sediment settling in still water. That silt is completely invisible as a hazard when the water is clear. But a single careless fin kick, one moment of panic, one mistimed movement, and the floor erupts into a dense white cloud that fills the passage in seconds. Divers call this a silt out. In a silt out, visibility drops from 40 feet to 0. In less time than it takes to register what is happening. You cannot see your pressure gauge. You cannot see the walls. You cannot find the guideline you ran on the way in, if you ran one at all. You cannot find your dive partner. The cave becomes a sealed, lightless box around you. And everything you do next determines whether you are one of the people who gets to tell the story. More than 12 people have died in Jacob's Well. Several of their bodies remain inside it to this day. In locations so deep, so structurally unstable, or so geometrically impossible to reach, that official recovery efforts have been declared unsafe and abandoned. The well holds its dead. It does not give them back. Authorities at various points welded steel grating over the entrances to the deeper chambers, attempting to permanently close off the fatal passages. The grates were cut open. Divers arrived after dark with bolt cutters, driven by a compulsion that enforcement efforts could not extinguish. The well had called to them. They answered. Scientists at a research institution in Texas decided to approach the problem from a different direction. Rather than sending another human into a cave system with a documented body count, they would send something that did not need to breathe, did not experience panic, and would not be affected by whatever psychological pull the deeper passages seemed to exert on every diver who reached them. The ROV they deployed was a compact, yellow, remotely operated vehicle equipped with multiple high-definition cameras, powerful forward-facing lights, and sonar systems capable of producing centimeter-level three-dimensional maps of cave walls in complete darkness. A fiber-optic tether connected it to a surface control station set up on the limestone bank, feeding live video to monitors in real time. The mission parameters were straightforward. Descend through the known chambers, navigate the connecting passages, reach the fourth chamber, and build the first complete visual and spatial record of the system anyone had ever produced. The team lowered the drone into the 12-foot opening on a calm morning. On the monitors, the screen filled immediately with the stunning blue-green light of the upper chamber. Shafts of sunlight angled through the water, illuminating pale limestone walls in gold and aquamarine. It looked, as one researcher later described it, like something from a nature documentary, a controlled, beautiful environment. Then the drone tilted forward and began descending toward the second chamber, and the light changed. The blue deepened, the gold disappeared. By 80 feet, the sun was entirely gone, and the drone's own lights were the only thing standing between the cameras and absolute darkness. The operator threaded the machine through the birth canal with careful, minimal thruster input, keeping the silt undisturbed. The drone emerged into the third chamber, paused for systems checks, and then turned toward the narrow crack at the far end of the room, the entrance to the fourth chamber. The passage. No human had reached in decades. What the cameras found inside that passage was not rock. The drone's lights swept the walls of the narrowing tunnel, and the cameras caught a reflection, something metallic. The operator slowed the vehicle and zoomed in, a scuba fin, standing upright from a bed of gravel. Beside it, a corroded oxygen tank half buried in silt, its regulator encrusted with decades of mineral deposit. A strip of black wetsuit fabric caught on a rock projection, and then, tucked into a crevice, partially covered by gravel that had shifted and settled over the course of more than 4 decades, skeletal human remains. The control station went silent. With digital enhancement, a name tag on the remains of the wetsuit was brought into focus. The name was Kent Mopin. For anyone familiar with the history of Jacobs, well, that name carried the weight of an entire community's grief. Kent Mopin disappeared on September 9, 1979, along with a companion named Mark Brashier. Their disappearance generated newspaper coverage, triggered a major rescue and recovery operation, and left a scar on Wimberley that the town had carried for more than 40 years without resolution. Now, a robot was providing the answer that 40 years and every human effort had failed to deliver. As the camera continued panning, the lights found a second set of scuba equipment, a second pair of fins, a second tank. Kent Mopin had not gone into that passage alone. The drone was hovering inside the same space where 2 people had died simultaneously, in a grave that the cave itself had constructed, burying them under cascading gravel until the passage sealed closed and the water above it cleared again. The cave had buried them, then smoothed the surface back to its impossible, treacherous clarity, as if nothing had happened at all. What the drone documented visually, the written record of 1979, had already described in terrible detail. The rescue diver who responded to that original emergency, a former Navy diver named Don Dibble, widely regarded as the most capable deep-water recovery specialist in Texas, had come close to dying in the same passage himself. He had entered the cave the morning after the disappearance, when the other rescue divers reported that the gravel floor of the fourth chamber passage was in constant slow-motion collapse. filling any space that was cleared almost as fast as it could be removed. Dibble had made the decision no leader makes lightly. He would go in himself, rather than order someone else into a space he had not personally assessed. He had staged spare air tanks at measured intervals, run his safety line, checked his pressure gauge, and pushed his head and shoulders into the opening. The gravel pile collapsed on top of him instantly. He was pinned in zero visibility, unable to move his arms, unable to signal the diver positioned 3 feet behind him, and burning through his air supply at a rate his body was accelerating through panic before he could consciously stop it. He survived because of a single involuntary convulsion, a survival reflex that shifted him just enough for his partner to reach a spare regulator to his hand in the darkness. He made it to the surface with a ruptured stomach wall from swallowed air expanding as pressure decreased on ascent. Surgeons described the condition as nearly unsurvivable. It took 12 hours for the pain to subside. The recovery operation continued without him, eventually bringing in industrial suction equipment to try to vacuum the gravel from depth, but the cave refilled every foot they cleared. After 12 days and the exhaustion of every available resource and expert opinion, the effort was officially ended. Kent Mopin and Mark Brashear were left where they were. The well was sealed. The seal was eventually cut open again. The footage from the ROV mission accomplished what no human diver had managed in the modern era. It produced a documented, high-definition visual record of the fourth chamber and confirmed the fate of the 1979 victims with physical evidence that closed a chapter of unresolved grief. But in closing that chapter, the data opened something else. The drone's sonar, raiding the walls of the passages it traveled through, detected voids behind the rock. Spaces beyond the mapped system that the sonar could identify but not fully characterize. At the outer edge of the instrument's effective range, past the fourth chamber, the readings suggested the passage did not end, it continued. How far? In what direction? Through what kind of geometry? The data could not say. The signal degraded before the cave answered. Divers who have reached the deepest accessible points of Jacob's Well and made it back have consistently reported feeling air movement through cracks in the rock walls. Not current. Air, which means the cave breathes, which means it connects to spaces that have not been entered, mapped, or named. The well's bottom, if it has one, has not been reached. What the drone found was not the end of the system. It was evidence that the system continues beyond the reach of anything yet deployed inside it. Jacob's Well has been killing people since before the rescue equipment existed to respond to it. It has been studied, sealed, mapped in fragments, and mourned over. It has given back almost nothing of what it has taken. The drone saw further into it than any human has managed in living memory, and what it returned with was not resolution. It was confirmation that there is more. Something deeper than the current map, darker than the current record, older than the current understanding of what this place actually is. The water above it stays 68 degrees year-round. It stays impossibly clear. It stays beautiful. And the hole at the bottom of that beauty keeps going down. If this story stayed with you, subscribe for more deep dives into the places and events that don't come with easy answers.